So we're going to start with that developing news out of Russia, Moscow, specifically the capital, and Russia's claims that 2 drones attacked the Kremlin, effectively the seat of Russian government. They've blamed Ukraine. Ukraine has denied it. Now, we'll get into those claims and counterclaims in just a moment. First, though, let's take a look at this footage that has been posted on social media. You can see here on the left-hand side that little flying dot and then the explosion. So it happens pretty quickly. We'll have another look at it again in just a moment. But there are 2 main videos. This is the second one. And just above the writing, eventually coming into view, there does seem to be some smoke. Eventually, we'll just wait for that to appear there. Now, these 2 videos, I should say, they are posted on social media, and our teams are right now in the act of verifying them. At the moment, we're at the stage that there are no immediate red flags, but that, of course, doesn't mean that they are completely verified as of yet. But the fact that we have both Russia and Ukraine talking about them, that led us to the view that we should absolutely show them, with that caveat that we are still in the process of completely verifying those 3 clips. So, pretty extraordinary clips and an extraordinary claim and counterclaim. We have correspondents on both sides of this. So let's first go to Moscow, and Will Vernon is our correspondent there. Will, just checking you can hear us first of all, and just talk us through what exactly Russia has said.
That's right. This statement from the Kremlin saying that Ukraine used 2 drones to attack the Kremlin buildings last night. It said that the Russian forces managed to bring those drones down and that there were no injuries and the president himself was unhurt, although they did say this was an assassination attempt on Putin's life. Now, it's not absolutely clear what actually happened, but as you say, those videos have been emerging on social media, showing a fire and smoke and explosion around one of the Kremlin buildings. Now, if what the Kremlin is saying is true, then I think it raises questions about how well protected the president is. He seems to be one of the most well-guarded leaders in the world, right? When my colleagues and I have been at Putin events, the level of protection is huge. An enormous security detail, kind of enormous convoys of airspace closed, traffic halted, that kind of thing. But also, I think that questions will be asked about the effectiveness of Russian air defenses, because in recent months, we've spotted a number of air defense systems that have been placed in strategic locations around Moscow, usually in the vicinity of key buildings such as the defense ministry, precisely for this reason, right? Because the Kremlin is nervous that Ukraine, or those sympathetic to Ukraine, will launch aerial attacks against Russian targets. Now, I think that drone attacks, are getting more and more common here, and they seem to be creeping closer and closer to the capital. Just this morning, there was a drone attack on Krasnodar region near the occupied Ukrainian region of Crimea. That caused a huge fire. A number of other incidents in previous days, explosions, strange kind of incidents. 2 trains were derailed in Bryansk region near the border with Ukraine yesterday and the day before. The local governor blamed those on improvised explosive devices. So I think these incidents becoming more and more common, more and more serious, and causing a lot of nervousness, I think, here in Russia, especially amongst ordinary Russians.
OK, well, thank you very much for that. Do stay there for us. As you can see, also with us is Vitali Vitalechenko from BBC Monitoring. Vitali, just try and put a bit of context on this for us.
Yes, as Will says, it's a potentially very significant development. If this was indeed a Ukrainian attack on the Kremlin, possibly targeting the Russian president himself, this would be the first time, as far as we know, the first time known to the public, to the wider public, that the Russian leader or a leader involved in this war is being targeted. But there are various questions being asked about whether Ukraine is actually interested in this. We have two statements from key officials in Kiev, the presidential spokesman Serhiy Nikiforov and presidential advisor Mikhailo Podolyak. And both of them, they said the same thing, that everything Ukraine has at its disposal, it's using to defend itself rather than attack Russia. And both of these Ukrainian officials have said that it's possible that Russia might use this incident to justify an attack on Ukraine. So the big question now is how it happened and also who carried it out.
Indeed. All right, well, let's cross now to Ukraine, capital Kiev. Our correspondent Hugo Pascha is there. Hugo, give us what we're hearing now from the Ukrainian side.
Well, the Ukrainians are rejecting that they have anything to do with this alleged drone attack. And again, as Vitali was saying, we heard from a presidential spokesman here rejecting any Ukrainian involvement. And what is interesting is that we also heard from an advisor to President Zelensky, who not only rejected any Ukrainian involvement with this alleged attack, but also said that this could be an indication that Moscow is preparing to launch a large-scale attack against Ukraine. And Mikhailo Podolyak, the senior advisor, also said that carrying out an attack like this wouldn't change the situation on the battlefield for Kiev and would only give Russia the excuse to carry out more attacks targeting the civilian population. So again, the Ukrainians have so far rejected any kind of involvement in this alleged drone attack. And I think what is interesting here is the context, because we've seen that there has been an increase in military activity from both sides, as the Ukrainians say they are now finishing their plans for a much anticipated counter-offensive to try to take back territory that's now under Russian occupation. So we've seen that in the last few days there have been explosions in Russia and in Russian-controlled territory. Russia has again targeted cities across the country. This morning we had more attacks targeting Kiev and other cities across Ukraine. So this latest claim by Moscow happens as both sides are preparing for this much anticipated Ukrainian counteroffensive.
Okay, Hugo, thank you very much for that. Hugo Pascha there giving us the Ukrainian counterclaim to the Kremlin's claim, if you are following. I just want to show you the initial video again, just while I bring you one more bit of breaking news from the United States. And just to say, keep an eye on the left-hand side of this picture, that dot flying and then the explosion. Now, we just have a little bit of breaking news from the United States on this, saying that the United States is trying to validate Russia's charge that Ukraine tried to kill Putin with Kremlin drone attack. So that is from a unnamed US official, according to the wires coming in to us here. So extraordinary claim and counterclaim to go with these pretty extraordinary pictures. As I said, we are working on the verification side on these pictures themselves, and our correspondents, as you saw there, right across Russia, London and Kiev, keeping across the claim and counterclaim. So we'll come back to that story in the coming hour as and when we get any more details.